So all these notes are being stored right on this notes key here. We don't have different notes for different users, which seems like it might be a cool thing. So the static version that we had a sign-in page as well. You may remember we copied signin.html. So we could try to make that happen. We could try to figure out our whole sign-in workflow. Never minding, for example, how we implement authentication and how we store separate, how we scope notes to specific users. We could try to just solve the workflow piece of this first, or the flow. So have a sign-in page. You click a button. It changes something in state that says you're signed in now. Then it shows you your notes. You click a sign out button. It removes user information from state and kicks you back to the sign-in page. We could do that part first without worrying about the implementation details about what ultimately should happen when you click that sign-in button. We could just make it update state automatically without taking a password or anything, just to get the flow working. So let's see if we can do that much. See if we can build our sign-in component and make that whole flow work, even if we're not doing the actual authentication piece yet. No reason why we couldn't do that. All right, so let's make a new component called sign-in. I'm going to call that capital S sign, capital I in.js. It is a component. So of course, we're going to import React from React. Const sign in equals arrow function. Export default sign in. We're going to return some JSX. How about a div with a class of sign in? If you look at signin.html, what was on there? Okay, a header, a main thing. Let's just copy all this business. Paste it in there. Fix my indentation. Got red squigglies all over the place. There's an image here, right? So that needs to be self-closing. There's an image here, it needs to be self-closing. We've got some class, which should be class name. Let's try to fix all those. Signin.html, which you copied from static note header into public. If you just hit Command P and start typing sign in, hopefully you find signin.html. So I already designed the page for you ahead of time, which, you know, this is not an entirely unrealistic scenario. If you're developers, there may very well be designers on the team who create static HTML versions of these things, give them to you to turn them into React components. Let's see what we get with this. So we've got a sign-in component. Just for the moment, let's go to app.js and import sign-in from sign-in. And temporarily, I'm just going to change main to sign-in to see what we see. Hey, nerd, you like notes? You never know when you're going to need to write crap down. In fact, you should probably be taking notes right now. Sign in with GitHub, sign in with Google. All right. I don't know how these should work. I'm just going to make the buttons do something, anything. Yeah.
Can you copy and paste your sign-in page in React? I mean, in Slack. And I'm getting some errors.
All right, my sign-in JS is pasted in Slack now. So without worrying about what this looks like for the moment, where should we handle authentication? App.js. So instead of taking main out of here, what's really going to happen is we're going to say something like, if you're signed in, show main. If you're not, show sign in. Something like that. So app seems like the place to keep track of this. It does, doesn't it? So let's add some state here. We could add a constructor, or we could just say state equals. I'll just store like a user ID, UID, and it'll just start as null. And we could use a function that updates it. Let's just make a method in here called handleAuth. Make it an arrow function. I don't know how it's going to work yet. So for right now, let's just do this dot set state UID and just put something in there. I'll just put dstruce in there. We just want something that's going to change the state. So if we pass handleAuth down to sign in, this dot handleAuth, then inside sign in, on click on one of these buttons, well, I'm going to get props passed down now, right? So I'll destructure them, handleAuth. And on click, we'll just call handleAuth. Let's just see if that works. So in React, let's look at app. Here we go. State, UID is null. Let's click sign in with GitHub. UID is not null. Okay. Cool. I'm going to add another method called signed in. Signed in. I'm going to have this return this.state.uid. If it's null, signed in will be falsy. If it's true, if there is a UID there, then it'll be true. So I could always just check this.signed in to see if you're signed in or not. I could just use this.state.uid to check whether you're signed in, but that seems like an implementation detail that isn't the best thing to check in the heat of the moment when you need to find out whether you're signed in. I like having a method called signed in. So here's what I'm thinking. In here, I want to run signed in, this.signed in. If it's true, I want to show main. If it's false, I want to show sign in. Make sense? So to do something conditional like that inside your JSX, it's pretty common to just use a ternary because it ends up being fairly readable. So I could put it inside curly braces, and I think I'm going to indent that. So inside curly braces, I can put a JavaScript expression, right? And a regular if statement is not an expression, so I can't use an old school if here. This.signed in, that's the thing I want to check, right? So basically I want to do this. This.signed in, question mark, so a ternary. Then the thing that happens if it's true, and if it's true, I'm going to do main, right? If it's false, I'm going to do sign in here. Let's see if that works. click sign in, and I get main. See that? Click sign in with GitHub, and now I've got this. So I've got a sign out button here too, right? Let's make a sign out button, or a sign out method. Sign out is an arrow function, and it should just like set UID back to null. This dot set state. UID null. So this one line ternary is actually super hard to read. But you can totally just put line breaks in there. So you'll see this a lot, especially in JSX. Just indent these. So not too bad a way to do a conditional inside JSX. Once you get used to seeing this, it's very easy to see, okay, this is what happens if it's true, this is what happens if it's false. So here's my condition, here's what happens if it's true, here's what happens if it's false. So leaving the question mark and colon at the beginning of those lines kind of helps you see your place. Fairly common pattern. So main now needs this sign out method, right? We'll put sign out, this dot sign out. Now that's a prop coming into main. Main needs to pass it on to the sidebar, right? That's where the sign out button is. So main is a class, so it's going to be this dot props, right? We don't destructure them. So let's see, sidebar. Sidebar is getting reset current node already. Now it needs to get sign out. And that'll be this dot props dot sign out. Make sense? Now that it's a real class, we get to our props from this dot props.
Where do we need to add the word props before?
Say again?
It's already input.
Since it's a class, you can always get to your props from this dot props. You don't have to put it in an argument list anywhere. It's just going to be there. So in our sidebar, now we're going to get sign out as a prop, right? So we'll destructure it up here. And let's find our sign out button. Here it is. So on click equals sign out. Click sign in with GitHub. Here's main. Click sign out down here. Back to the sign in page. So now we've actually got this sign in, sign out flow going, even though we haven't really implemented handle auth. We don't know really how we're going to figure out whether their authentication credentials were correct. But we can get this whole flow going without knowing that implementation detail. So the business of just showing one view when you're signed out and a different view when you're signed in, that part we've taken care of. Cool. Yeah.
I'm getting an error where it says maximum update depth exceeded. For some reason, it's not showing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look at that in a sec. Your sign in button? It got sick of your crap, Elijah. No. I'll look at it in a sec. Add authentication flow. Add authentication flow.